Today we're going to talk about what exactly is a cloud-based bookkeeping business. So, as a finance as a service business, we talk a lot about accounting, controllership, FP&A, that's financial planning and analysis, your CFO, and ultimately your tax and advisory. But it all starts with good, solid bookkeeping. And today, especially nowadays, we're all leveraging technology and tools that, we're no longer visiting our customers' office spaces, and we're able to do everything virtually. And so here we go, cloud-based bookkeeping. So ultimately, with bookkeeping and accounting, at the end of the day, you really are looking for tight, clean, closed books that you can count on. No pun intended, right? But at the end of the day, bookkeeping is more than just the end game, it's also the process. And so in bookkeeping, why it's so important, it's actually focused on the underlying workflow. And here are kind of the four main areas that cloud-based bookkeepers touch. And by the way, you don't have to be in someone's office anymore. It's not about the physical touch or the physical footprint. It's about being able to execute on these four basic workflows. So 1, AP, 2, accounts receivable, 3, your bank accounts, and 4th, that's your general ledger. That's bringing it all together. So let's start with 1, accounts payable. At the end of the day, small businesses, they have to be able to pay bills, they have to run payroll, but guess what? You don't need to be in person to do that. There are systems in place. For example, if you're on QuickBooks Online or on Xero, we love Bill.com, we love Melio Payments. Those are two good platforms, although the latter we actually recommend for smaller practice or boutique type businesses. And it's all about posting those bills on time so that they hit your accounts payable, so you have good accrual accounting, and then ultimately dispersing those funds correctly and timely to your vendors. Second, let's talk about accounts receivable. Now, I get it. If we're not in your office, it's really hard to take those checks, walk them over to the bank, deposit them, and then go back to your general ledger and post those checks. But today, 80 to 90% of payments are actually coming in via ACH, especially if your vendors are now on Bill.com or some other type of online system. You don't actually have to walk those checks over to the bank. And if you still are receiving checks, we're big fans of having check readers in your office. They're actually being handed out for free with most banks. So, AR, you can still post those deposits to your general ledger, so you're closing out those invoices. Secondly, on a cloud accounting or cloud bookkeeping, you can actually still do the invoicing. The days of having time cards and physical presence to capture the time or the material cost, a lot of this stuff is already in the cloud. And many times what you're finding is it's no longer the exception that it's in the cloud. The exception is actually it's not in the cloud. So cloud bookkeeping can even help you manage your accounts receivable. And I'll take a step further, they can even help you with collections. So 3, that's your bank accounts, right? These are all your financial institutions, whether it's your credit cards, your savings accounts, your money market, your checking accounts. Nowadays, with QuickBooks Online and Xero, the bank accounts, they actually connect to these general ledgers, and you can connect the bank feeds. Now, 9 out of 10 times, we're always connecting bank feeds to the general ledger, but there are times we don't, and there are exceptions to that rule. But with these bank feeds, you no longer have to actually do the data entry. They actually come in automatically, and you can code those transactions. And you can do it in such a way where you're not duplicating, because that's actually one of the big mistakes small business owners do, is you have your accounts payable being posted to your general ledger, and then you have a check that's cut, and then you ultimately have the bank fee that's coming in, and it begins to duplicate these entries. Cloud bookkeepers, they know how to fix this. The last thing around bank accounts, and by the way, probably the most important thing in terms of cash control and making sure that, limited exposure to fraud, that's having all of your accounts reconciled. And by the way, we're big fans that you don't just reconcile your bank accounts, your credit cards, you also should be reconciling your payroll. You should also be reconciling things like PayPal, Stripe. Many times, accountants, they don't treat those accounts like bank accounts, but they truly are bank accounts. So we're fans of reconciling, and our cloud accounting team, they can do that for you. The last piece is your general ledger. I get it. Cloud bookkeeping, you're not CPAs, but the reality is, if the data's already in there, chances are you could actually get a really good accrual-based bookkeeping, accounting, and not cash base on a cloud system. And it all really comes down to your accounts payable and your accounts receivable. By the way, accrual-based accounting, you can pretty much capture 90% of accrual based on those two items. Now, the second piece for the general ledger component is your work papers. Work papers tend to be, for the most part, in Excel, and that can also be accrual, right? And so as your bookkeeper goes in and does the day-to-day weekly workflow, the controller, who's also virtual, she or he is able to elevate your accounting to ensure that it's accrual using work papers. And then the last piece, of course, is fiscal closes. Now that you've gone through the entire month, paying bills, receiving cash, posting payments, posting interest, tightening up your accrual accounting, closing out your work papers, now you have that fiscal close. And that also includes a face-to-face, usually via Zoom or some other video conferencing, to help you understand your financial situation.